You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okelo, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining me for another exciting episode of the Daily African Proverbs here in the African Father in America club and podcast. We are live on YouTube, and I'm really here with the incredible Gogo Ngara. Gogo Ngara, how are you doing today, by the way? Where are you joining us from? Just say hi for a moment.
Hi, Simon. I'm joining in from Johannesburg. We're currently under load shedding, so we're having major problems with electricity. So sometimes things may go a bit dark, and therefore we lose connectivity. But other than that, we're well and enjoying the winter sun.
Fantastic. I'm always excited to spend time with you, even if it's just 5 minutes. So I'll make sure that, we just enjoy whichever amount of time we have together. Today we are sharing a Nigerian proverb. For those who have joined us in the past, we gather here so that we can, dissect African proverbs and gain African wisdom, and also make our ancestors proud by preserving and protecting these beautiful proverbs. So our proverb today says that when you are eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. This is a Nigerian proverb. And first, we are going to learn Gogo Ngara's perspectives on this proverb. What is it that, Gogo thought about when she came across this proverb. And also, later on, we are going to learn about the African, spirituality. From an African spiritual perspective, when you look at this proverb, what is it that you can share with us? That's part of what we'll talk to Gogo about. But Gogo, yesterday's conversation here was really incredible. We were talking about abortion rights and what's going on in America. So if you have views on that, we would love to hear that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon. I must say, for me, this proverb feels both simple and complex. And when I was looking at the proverb, the first thing that came to mind for me is certainly coming from a traditional perspective from Zimbabwe, or even here in South Africa, where I am. Traditionally, we did not eat with spoons, we eat with our hands.
This is Simon speaking. We lost Gogo Ngara there for a moment. She's in South Africa, as she said earlier, and they're having power.
It has frozen. Simon?
Hi, Gogo. We lost you there for a moment. We lost you there for almost 30 seconds or so. So if you just want to start from the beginning, we would really appreciate it. Hi, Gogo. Can you hear me? This is Simon speaking. Okay. We must have lost her. So we will wait. We'll give her a few minutes to join us. But if you're here, we are here for the Daily African Proverbs. We are live on YouTube, and we are also live on Clubhouse. Thank you, Lavenda and Dan and Sarah, for joining us. And I also see Jen has joined us, on Clubhouse. For those who have joined us on YouTube, thank you so much. We are discussing a Nigerian proverb, and my special guest today is Gogo Ngara, who is joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa. And the proverb we are discussing says, when you are eating with the devil, you use a long spoon. When you are eating with the devil, you use a long spoon. I want to just check if Gogo Rutendo is back. She must have. She told me that she's having, power outage issues. In South Africa, they do this thing called load shedding, where sometime you just, you have electricity for an hour here, then it goes away for 2 hours, and so on and so forth. So today is like that over there. So we'll just be patient with her. Now, if we look at this proverb, when you are eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. There are a couple of things. First, I want to share some of the episode takeaways that my team and I brought for this conversation today. But similar to many of the proverbs that we discuss here every day, with this one, this one is another one of the wise African proverbs that our ancestors basically, left us with in order to remind us to be careful who we trust. The devil in this proverb is known to be cunning and deceitful, and if you're not careful, he will take advantage of you. And this proverb is a warning. It's a warning on, you should always keep your guard up. Whenever you feel like something is not right, you should remember to always, be on guard and protect yourself. But I want to give you the actual takeaways so that, while we share these, you also think about your own interpretation of this proverb. What is it that comes to your mind when you hear this proverb that says, when you're eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon? So the first takeaway for this episode is that people are inherently good. Everybody is making an effort to be productive, to be useful to the society, and whenever people have shortfalls, whenever people go through difficult times, a lot of the time people don't invite trouble or challenges or problems, they encounter them. And again, I want you to think about that, because maybe we might also think or say that people choose the situations that they're in, but really, no matter what situation you're in, you should always think and believe that you're a good person. And then most people have good intentions. It's situations that put people in a corner, and in those moments, it's how much work you've been putting into yourself that allows you to get yourself in those corners without, compromising your integrity. So your intentions, why are you in this world? At the end of the day, that is what is going to enable you to move through the most challenging situations, knowing that you are here hopefully for a bigger reason than the situation that has you in a corner. Then number 3, you can't control what other people do, but you can control how you react. This reminds me of something I always tell so many people that I engage with in life, career-wise. I always share that you can only set standards for yourself, but you cannot set standards for other people. You can only set expectations for yourself, but you cannot do that for other people. So it's just important.
Is it connected though?
It's important to think about that. I want you to consider those few words, and I want to welcome you all to the Daily African Proverbs. I want to create space for Lavender and Debbie to also say a few words, and then when my guest is back with us, we will also engage her in this conversation. Remember, every Thursday we typically host Gogo Ngara, and we just lost her for a moment because she's having load shedding back in South Africa. So Lavender, you can just say a few things, introduce yourself, share with us where you're joining us from, and also share with us what your thoughts are when you hear this Nigerian proverb that says, when you're eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. And also, if any of the episode takeaways that I shared stood out for you, you can speak a little bit about them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon. My name is Lavender, based in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you all for being here today. My thoughts, or before I share my thoughts about the proverb, Simon, thank you for all the insights you've shared. Those are food for thought, at least for me. I don't know about everybody else. About today's proverb, when you're eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. Just like you had mentioned earlier, we need to be very mindful and watchful of the kind of people we interact with. When you interact with bad people or evil people, evil will rub off on you. You'll be affected in one way or the other. That's it for me for now. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Lavender. I love what you're saying, and I agree that you should mind your company. I kind of summarized everything you're saying. That what is most important is who are you sitting next to. Who is sitting around you, and that determines a lot of who you become. To the world. I want to, thank you so much, Lavender, for your perspectives. And also, I want to welcome back Gogo Rutendo Ngara and just create space for you to continue by sharing with us your perspectives on today's proverb from Nigeria. And don't worry about, the technical challenges that we're having. Everybody is aware that you're having load shedding, so you don't even need to apologize about it. But I'll just share the proverb one more time. When you are eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. This is a Nigerian proverb. It's the center of our conversation today. I am live streaming on YouTube. I'll share the link at the top of the Clubhouse room in a moment. And my special guest is Gogo Rutendo Ngara from South Africa, who is an evolved spiritual leader, and she blesses us with her time and a wealth of knowledge almost every Thursday. So Gogo, I'll pass you the microphone.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure where I got cut off, but I'm sure I got cut off at the beginning. Where I was saying the first thing that struck me is from a traditional perspective, we would not eat with the spoon, we'd eat with our hands, and, the hands bringing that very close relationship with the food, with the texture, with the connection to where it came from, who grew it, who planted it, etc. But the minute we start bringing in external implements, the food becomes a bit more distant from us. And especially if we're moving beyond, say, a wooden spoon to, perhaps say a metal spoon, then it becomes even more distant from us. And so that was the first thing that struck me about the proverb. But then it strikes me that it is both simple and complex. I think from a simple perspective, it is a warning. It is a warning for one to be careful who you sit with. And if you know who it is that you're sitting with, and if you know who it is, what it is that the intentions are, how do you stomach or how do you ingest that which is being shared in that space, and what are the potentials that what you ingest could be toxic, could be poisonous, and therefore how do you keep that at a distance? And I think this is why you then need a long spoon, because you're creating that distance. As I said, the closest you can have is if you're using your hands and really engaging with it, and then depending on the implement you use, you can have more and more distance with what you're eating before you actually ingest it. So it is, for me, a warning.
This is Simon speaking. As I said earlier, Gogo Rutendo Ngara is in South Africa, and currently there is shading, electricity shading, so she'll be on and off because of that. But this is a warning. This proverb is definitely a warning, and that's those are the words that Gogo Rutendo Ngara left us with. And really, those are also the words that we were speaking about earlier when, when we look at the episode takeaways and the meaning of this proverb. It's really in alignment with Gogo's perspectives. So we will wait for her to join us, but here's Gogo. Hi Gogo, where the call dropped off is where you are saying that this is a warning. This proverb is a warning. So carry on.
Yeah, it's a warning to keep that who it is that you are eating with at arm's length, but also to keep what it is that you're eating at arm's length. So whatever is the content of whatever that engagement is, that must be considered very carefully, because with the long spoon, you're probably given more time to have a look at that which is coming towards you before you have the opportunity to put it in your mouth. So it really is a warning about the toxicity of that which we ingest and how that impacts us in life. But as I was reflecting on the proverb, I thought, but what if you are the devil? And the devil is not an external body, it's not an external person. What if the devil is that which resides within? And what is it that you're then feeding yourself? And how do you create mechanisms within yourself to ensure that there is that distance? And so if, for example, you have a 20 centimeter spoon, that is easy, I think, to ingest with, because it is not at, it's shorter than your arm's length. But perhaps if you wanted to put in more measures, you could start increasing the sizes, the length of your spoon. So if you have a spoon that is perhaps a meter long, well, for me, a meter would be long because I'm quite short, then it would actually be very difficult to get that food into your mouth, with a very, very long spoon, because it requires, that arm length to go out. So it's for me, this proverb is both looking at what happens if it is an external so-called devil, and a warning about how to create distance so that you can reflect and so that you can see, so that you can be circumspect about what it is that is coming into you, but also what happens when it is from within. And if that which is within is, and that which you have prepared that you're trying to eat is toxic, then if it continues and if you continue to ingest it, it becomes increasingly toxic, and it can fester and can cause dis-ease. But what for me this speaks to is that in African spirituality, there isn't really an external devil. And in African spirituality and indigenous spirituality, everything's really about duality. And we're told that in the absence of what you're not, what you are is not. In the absence of what you're not, what you are is not. We have the potential to move on both sides of the fence, so to speak. We have two different spirits. Some of the San elders will tell you that there are two spirits inside you. There's one which yearns for good, and there's one that yearns for so-called evil. So everything has its positive and negative qualities. But we see this in nature, and I believe last week's conversation with Lita was speaking to this about the shadow and the light, and the shadows and the sun. And the duality that we see in nature is evident. It's actually a mutual duality. So, for instance, if we look at everything has its natural opposite. Black has its natural opposite to white. Shade has its natural opposition to light. Night has its natural opposition to day. The moon is in resonance, in duality with the sun. Water has a natural opposition with fire. Cold has a natural opposition with heat. Wetness has a natural opposition with dryness. The autumn, it's naturally opposite to the spring, or the winter to summer. And that which is vibrant, is naturally in opposition with that which is faded. That which is discreet is naturally in opposition with that which is obvious. That which is indirect, is in duality with that which is direct. That which is rounded is naturally in opposition to that which is straight. The difference between softness and hardness, between flexibility and solidity, between inactivity and activity, between stillness and movement. between that which is calm and that which is energetic, the natural opposition between that which is slow and that which is fast, between being tired and exhausted or filled with energy, the difference between the back and the front, the left or the right, the interior and the exterior, being closed in or being opened out, centrifugal or centripetal, intuition or logic, quiet versus loudness, receptivity versus propulsiveness, death and life. So everything in life is filled with these dualities, and sometimes those dualities are not necessarily bad nor good. They are necessary dualities, necessary contradictions, that make up the polarity of life. So whether it is introversion, moving inwards, or whether it is extroversion, we require that in order to have the cycles. When you breathe, there's a moment when you are contracting, and therefore when you're expanding, your heart is always contracting and expanding. These polarities are really important for life. And we know that when you plant a seed, it has to be planted deep into the underground, into the darkness, where and it is in that darkness, in that place which is underground, where you cannot see, that it begins to grow roots, that is, it begins to draw on the nutrients of the soil, that it begins to draw on the waters that within, that it draws in anything that comes from above before it finally shoots, to meet the sun. So in our African spirituality, this duality, this necessary duality is there, and therefore everything is in natural opposition, in natural duality. And so there is not necessarily a devil, which is why I said, what if the devil is within? And in many of our indigenous philosophies, we realize that things are not inherently good nor inherently bad. For instance, it's literally like if you have a battery has a positive pole and a negative pole, and it is only when you have your positive and negative pole that you can have a current that's flowing through, and that is, there's a particular voltage that will give you the power to power up your devices. Without that positive and negative pole, there is actually no life. And so this is where we may start to think, if we're thinking about the devil, or what we may consider to be the devil. And the devil, if we take away the D, is usually denoted as the one who engages in evil. And once again, in many of our indigenous philosophies, there isn't anything that's necessarily inherently evil or inherently bad. There isn't that thing that is there and that is static in its evilness. We all have the propensity to move, from one state to the other. And sometimes they'll say, instead of having this dichotomy between good and bad, there'll be how the duality between the left and the right, operates. So those who operate, that which operates in the darkness is there in order to seed the light. So the night is there in order to bring forth the day. And by the same token, the day is there to bring forth the night, and therefore they move in the strengthening each other. The sun can only get stronger if it knows that there will be darkness that shows it, that it exists. And so these are two kind of forces that control the universe. This apparent contradiction, or this admixture between that which may be considered to be good or evil. And so what it's this, notwithstanding this, from an indigenous perspective, there are things that we can do that render us towards being the evil, or that which may be seen as evil, and it is that which brings about death, or that which brings about dis-ease, or that which brings about misfortune, or that which brings about destruction. This can be seen to be something that is debilitating and not necessarily life-giving. And when something is not necessarily life-giving, it may move and it may filter onto the edges of that which we may consider to be evil. But sometimes this that we may consider to be evil may be visible or invisible. And when it moves to the great expanse of what we may consider to be that which is not for the benefit of the whole, then we see the evils of the world. Then we see the murders, the violence, the oppression, the victimizations, the thefts. Then we see all the injustices that we have in the world, and often these invisible sources are seen to have actually a spiritual origin. And that spiritual origin is the inability to cultivate ourselves, towards our highest divinity. And when we're unable to cultivate ourselves towards our highest divinity, when we're unable to cultivate ourselves to following the precepts of Ma'at, or following the precepts of Ubuntu, of interconnectedness, interrelatedness, and interdependence of all that is, then we find ourselves moving towards the polarity, the negative polarity, which is then not able to be mediated by the positive duality. Ultimately, harmony is brought about by disharmony. Disharmony is there so that harmony can exist. But if not done in moderation, it can lead to dis-ease, to misfortune, to paralysis, and eventually to death. Now, because of this duality in our indigenous African cultures, we find that there are often deities or archetypal energies that are attributed to what has been mistaken by Christianity as the devil. And since we're in Nigeria, let's talk about Eshu or Elegba, who is often seen as the trickster deity, and the trickster deity who governs the principles of contradiction or dialectics or dynamics. But this trickster is also the divine messenger. Even though he's the divine messenger, he's also the god of chance. He's the principle of indeterminacy, and therefore he's the essence of fate. And because of this, he's the mediator of the exchange and the reposition of Asher, that which guarantees balance and harmony. And so, because of this, he if in that form as Eshu, or here we may call him Mpungushe, or in Kemet they may call him Sebek, he's really important for opening the way. He's really important for sitting at the crossroads. He's really important for inspecting the heart to make sure it lives according to truth. He's really important for being a garbage collector. And the fact that he's a trickster is because he presents you with 80% truth and 20% twist. And if you're unable to see the 20% twist, it means that you have not inculcated truth within your being. And so this is a really important deity, which unfortunately has been mistaken in many of our modern religions or monotheistic religions as the devil. And yet it is not. It is a very important, aspect of who, of what we need in order to cultivate ourselves towards our own divinity. So, I would say that if we're looking at this proverb, we firstly have to look at the warning about who it is that we're consorting with, who is it that we are communing with, and what are their intentions, what are their principles, and are they eating ma'at, are they eating ubuntu, have they prepared things according to the interdependence, the interrelatedness, and interconnectedness of all that is. Do they strive for equality, for equanimity? Do they strive for peace? Do they strive for unity? Or do they strive for separation? Do they strive for segregation, for discrimination, and eventually to the great ills of war and destruction and dis-ease, and coming towards what we may consider towards being an apocalypse? So for me, this proverb tells us to use the spoon as a gauge, firstly, so that we are able to observe that which we ingest, whether it's coming from the other or whether it is coming from within, and also as a tool that helps us to get distance from that which may not necessarily be that which nourishes self, but also that which nourishes the whole.
Wow. Thank you. I really love the way you're teaching us that, the spoon should help us with gauging our distance between us and our food, and gauging also our distance between us and the people that we are eating with, and also, I really love how this is a warning. This proverb, according to how you're teaching us, it's a warning that what you're eating could be toxic. What you're eating could be toxic. It could also be good, but you just need to be aware, and then we're also learning here that, the devil is not somewhere else. The devil most likely is within you. You need to look within before you look outside, and as you're speaking, I was really reminded of the conversation we were having yesterday, and also Roe versus Wade, which is, the historic case here in the US where the Supreme Court overturned this, this law that basically gave women abortion rights, and now that has been reversed, it has taken, the US many, over 100 years backwards. And, when we look at African spirituality, this proverb actually teaches us something about the current situation in the US, because I feel that the US Supreme Court is pretty much the devil, and the body, the US, the people who live within the US are identified as US person, Companies that belong to the US are identified as US companies. So if the US itself was, a being, which is there, it's identified as, then this situation would represent a really good example of there is a devil within this being. If you think about the great names that the US is given as a superpower, and it's one of the countries, if not, China has many people than the US, but it has so many. The population is huge. It's a melting pot compared to many parts of the world. This is where the world meets, but then it's faced with some of the biggest challenges ever known to mankind, including this current situation. So I wanted you to relate the two briefly, and also tie in what does African spirituality say about abortion rights?
Well, if we look at African spirituality, there is no disconnection between the past, present, and the future. And therefore, there's also no disconnection, or there's a connection between those who have come before, those who are living now, and those who are yet to come. And this would be what we call the principle of Ubuntu. And so, according to African spirituality, whatever you do to one part of the system is going to affect the whole of the system. And so, if there are situations such as abortion or aborting anything, and when we speak, abortion, we're not just speaking about abortion in the physical sense in terms of a physical fetus, but we're also speaking metaphorically about abortion. What is it that we conceive in life, and how do we gestate it, and therefore how do we give birth to it, and what happens when you stop the process of gestation. If we stop the process of gestation, it means that you're not able to birth. And so what we realize, certainly from within an indigenous African perspective, is when situations such as abortion or even miscarriage have taken place, it means that the whole cycle of life from the beginning, in terms of conception, through to gestation, through to birth, and that which lives before, has been broken. And when that happens, one has to go inwardly into a process of deep contemplation and deep cleansing to see what is it that needs to be reconstructed in terms of the cycle of life. What is it that needs to be reconnected? What is it that needs to be brought back into interdependence, into relationalness and interconnectedness? So I'm not going to give an either or, but I will apply, like, how do we apply for each and every case? What is it that has been, in what part has a process been thwarted, and whether it is miscarriage of ideas or whether it is out and out, abortion of ideas or concepts, or birthing of ourselves anew. So, and then if there is no difference between those that have come before, those who live now, and those who are yet to come, if there's no disconnection within them, then we see that there is a spirit that moves, even through the one who has been miscarried, or the one who has been aborted, and therefore there is a need to honor and revere and do ceremony and ritual towards that. And so it would be less about having external measures, to determine, external laws or man-made laws to determine whether people, women should have the right to abort or not, but it should be more about internal measures. If I have the desire to abort, what is it within me, that is seeking conception or gestation or birth, and how would that influence my decisions going forward? And so we take it from an externalized view, more towards the inner self, in terms of, from an indigenous perspective. And then, of course, we then look at it from a perspective of community. What does it mean for community as well? When we're looking at this, so the rights, it's the difference between man rights, rights that are made by the what we call the Sahu level of consciousness, the lower mind, and then the rights that are determined by the higher mind or the divine mind, and that is that which takes into account Ubuntu, Ma'at, the interconnectedness, the interrelatedness, and interdependence of all that is.
Thank you so much. I just appreciate, your words of wisdom, and how we can look at it from an African spiritual perspective. I want to recognize our guests who are with us on Clubhouse: Stella, Kay, Rushi, Brother, Debbie, and Lavender. Thank you for being with us on the stage, and also everyone else who is listening, from Sarah all the way to Michelle. Thank you for being here. Remember to ping in 3 to 5 people to join us for this conversation on Clubhouse, and also follow the African Father in America Club. The green house at the top of the Clubhouse screen is the best way for you to do that, and nominate people to join the club as well. We are live and direct on YouTube as well. Thank you to everyone who is there. We are, having a great conversation with Gogo Rutendo Ngara, who is an incredible and evolved spiritual leader joining us from South Africa. And we are talking about a Nigerian proverb that says, when you are eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. And we learned Gogo Rutendo Ngara's, interpretation of this proverb. We've learned, her perspective on this proverb from an African spiritual, angle. And we also learned a little bit from her in regards to abortion rights from an African spiritual perspective. So I want to open the floor really quickly to some of you who are on the stage to share your perspectives just quickly, because we want Gogo to be able to listen to you and maybe reflect on your thoughts. So Lavender, just quickly, any comments to Gogo, and then we'll move to Debbie. Debbie will also share with us, her perspective on the proverb, and any comments to Gogo as well, and also share where you're joining us from. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. I'm Lavender. I'm joining from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I had shared my thoughts about the proverb, and I'm still absorbing everything Gogo said. So I'm going to pass this beat and listen. Thank you again, Simon.
Thank you so much, Lavender, for your presence, your continued support. I want to welcome Debbie. Debbie, share with us your perspectives as well on the proverb and any comments to Gogo, and also if you have your own, thoughts on the proverb, please.
Greetings and appreciation to all. Debbie Berlin, Game Dev Debbie from Maryland near DC. Regarding the discussion, I appreciate the idea of polarity and the opposites. And as Abraham Hicks says, two sides of the same stick, the value and contrast of experiencing what we don't want helps us to know what we do want. And that balance in the sweet spot, the middle, I often compare it to the tension that is experienced between partner dancing. You have to have that tension in order for the dance to happen. And regarding the proverb, it reminds me of a story I heard of heaven and hell. In heaven, we have long spoons. Sorry, in hell, we have long spoons and we're all trying to feed ourselves and we can't. But in heaven, you have the same long spoons, but instead we reach across the table and feed each other, and it works and we have our meal. So that is what I was able to have a perspective with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Debbie. Let's go to Brother. Brother, how are you doing? And what are your own perspectives on this proverb? Where are you joining us from today?
Peace and love, family. This is Brother Earth. I'm calling from the North Carolina territory. And honest to you, Simon, always for the platform to share the wisdom of the ancestors. And honest to Gogo for the way she always breaks things down and goes so in depth and made me look at it a whole different way. I was going to tell a story looking at the proverb from an external standpoint. But the way Gogo started going over it turned my whole thought to a different process. And in our teachings, um, one of the teachings says, if man wants to find a savior, he must go within, and if man wants to find his devil, he must go within. And we also taught that you have two selves, the higher self and the lower self. And with that being said, under in order to be at your highest understanding of or be at the highest, the peak of your higher self, you must really understand the depths of your lower self to a degree. So therefore you feed it, but you don't get up close and personal with it. And because I heard in the song, I want to say Rihanna say in the song somewhere that she has made friends with the devil under her bed, and yet and still to a degree we all have the potential to operate as a devil, but we don't necessarily, uh, you know, make that up close and personal. And the quick story that I was gonna say is, growing up, I used to ride around my uncle sometime, and he was out drinking with his buddies, and he had this one buddy named Junebug. And Junebug they used to call Junebug cutthroat because he would steal, he would do whatever, he would get over. And one time, they was getting low on drinks, and they was gonna send Junebug to the liquor house, and he gave Junebug the money to go get the liquor. And I'm like, when Junebug got around the corner, I say, you say Junebug steal and this, why you gonna trust him with your money? Let him go around the corner. He said, I don't trust him no further than I can throw him, but yet and still, I know at the same time, I wouldn't give him nothing that'll hurt me or that I couldn't afford to lose. So with that being said, feeding the devil with the long handled spoon is not to put yourself in a compromising position where you will end up giving more than you can afford to give. I come in love and I leave in pieces, Brother Earth.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I have so much to think about everything you said, and to also, um, I just need to digest it more. So thank you again for your incredible contributions. I see Gogo nodding at what you said, and she'll be able to reflect in a moment. Brother Rushi, how are you? Where are you joining us from, and what are your perspectives?
Hey Simon, I am doing well today. I am in Seattle along with you, looking at the sun come up. Beautiful thing to see. Uh, this proverb really touched me deeply, just due to the fact that there's been a couple of stories I've been following, and this proverb kind of relates to that. Because this proverb states, when you are eating with the devil, you must use a long spoon. There's two stories in South Africa that have really been on my mind. One is the latest story was there was a story about 21 kids uh, who died at a party recently in South Africa, and it is mysteriously died in the club. A lot of people right now they're investigating. A lot of people don't know what happened to the kids. Some people think some of the kids may have it was something that they ate at the club. Some people think it was some type of drug or something they inhaled. And I thought about them when I read this proverb because there was some type of devil in that club that caused the perish of 21 of our beautiful young kids that were just going out to have a good time, having a party. And that really that's what I think about when I think about that proverb, like you really have to not only be cautious of your surroundings, but you got to know the people who you hang out with. That story really hit home, and there was also another young man in South Africa, I believe this year, he was a big celebrity on Instagram. He was big on TikTok. So he was the type of kid that everyone wanted to be around, everyone wanted to follow. And he got invited to a club one night, and someone gave him something that ultimately caused him to die a week or two later. But no one knows what it was that he ingested or what they gave him. The people who he was with, no one is saying anything. So those type of stories really hit home when I think about this proverb because you have to be careful and cognizant of who you let in your circle, who you let feed you, whether that food is physical food or whether that food is mental food. You just have to be very cognizant of, what you are ingesting from others. Thank you.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you, Brother Rushi. Again, that's another contribution that is an entire episode of this podcast. So thank you again. Let's go to Kay. Kay, how are you? And what are your own perspectives of this proverb? And where are you joining us from?
Hey Simon, I don't know. I hope you guys can hear me. Am I coming through clear?
Yes, you're
Or is
coming through.
anything
Just
in the
get closer to
background?
your mic for a moment. Get closer to your mic and just share briefly.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
So yeah, I find this proverb very inspiring. That it reminds me of a few words of advice that I think I got from National Geographic Channel some point about the leopard, and probably what maybe Chinua Achebe wrote in what's it called, like how leopard got his clothes back. Um, it basically, so as the people have mentioned before, that it's about holding a distance to the devil and not sort of mixing with the devil and whatnot. And it had me thinking that I had to quickly reflect that uh, that the devil sometimes maybe is not necessarily bad, uh, because it really depends on your perception of the devil. Uh, but again, you have to keep a distance. So, but what I wanted to say was to share was about calculation. That you always have to have all your moves calculated. You know, for the most part, and keep in mind that or whatever table you're eating on, and especially if it wasn't designed for you or with you in mind, that it has to be burnt down because it's not going to accommodate you, the devil or not. uh, it has to be burnt down, and you have to calculate your moves carefully because that's your mission. And I'm going to take inspiration by the words of the brother that was speaking before. He said, I came in peace. No, wait, he said, I came in love and I leave in peace.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Kay. I appreciate you as well. Hey, Stella, what are your own perspectives on this proverb? And briefly, let us know where you are as well and how you're doing.
Hi Simon, I'm good. Hi everyone. Today's proverb, to me, it makes me ask myself the question, why? When I looked at it, I thought of when you're doing something, you should ask yourself why you're doing it, so that you prepare yourself for the outcome that comes along from the decisions you make. And in the labor ward or in the maternity ward, we use the why question a lot, and you're trying to ask yourself if whatever you're doing is are the benefits outweighing the risks, or the risks outweighing the benefits, so that when you ask yourself such questions, you use the answers you get to make the right decision, because usually there are two lives involved, one a new one that is starting, and one a mother whose life has to be taken care of. And again, it also reminded me of our discussion yesterday on abortion rights. And in the morning, I was reading some article which I would love to share with you guys, and I just want to read in part. And this guy was talking about, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Stella. Keep going. Keep going. I
Okay.
appreciate you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. There's a part that he said that really hit me. That he wrote that, and I quote, "Abortion bans don't stop abortion; they only increase unsafe abortion." Meaning, we lose more women and girls seeking these services from unqualified people. No matter your beliefs, you cannot stop abortions from happening. They are beyond you, but you can support policy that ensures anyone who needs one can have it safely. So stop making it about you. Yes, and it just reads in part, but the whole article is so good. So again, it takes me back to the proverb, which I've summarized as a why. You have to ask yourself why you're doing something, because at the end of the day, there are devils involved and there are angels involved. You'll get risks and you'll get benefits. So in parting short, I would say, just like in the maternity ward or in the labor ward, we only do it if the benefits outweigh the risk. So I would just love to encourage us that in everything you do, ask yourself why, and always ensure that the benefits outweigh the risk, so that you don't regret when you get a certain outcome. Otherwise, thank you, and I'm happy to be here. And hi, Gogo.
Thank you, Stella. I love everything you just shared with us. Let's go to Jermaine and then come to Gogo to wrap up the session for us. Jermaine, share with us your perspective, where you are, and how you're doing. Thank you so
Hey
much.
Simon, good morning. As usual, blessings and honor to be here. I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, and I, enjoy the Proverbs. My perspective is that anything you do, anywhere you go, the devil is with you. Basically means that there's a negative force and a positive force that, is everywhere. Even when you're by yourself, you have that ability, that energy that you carry, and you just have to be smart and wise how you use your words, your thoughts, because you can use it for negative. There is a proverb that we use in Jamaica that say it's best to work with the evil that you know that than the evil that you don't know. So, it's similar. We work with the devil in terms that we can negotiate. In terms of if you're going to feed him with the long spoon, well, that is because you're left with no choice. Then that is how I'm looking at it. You have to do it. You have to go to the office and interact with some individual. You have people in your family that you have to interact with, and it's best to love from a distance. It's best to be careful because even the ancient Egyptian Set, and Horus have a perspective that it is good. The Set force, it is there to challenge you to be better and wiser and stronger. In other words, the devil is also there, to do the same thing. And the challenge or the person or the situation is there to challenge you, to be wise, and that is just my perspective. It's just a matter of being wise about, our actions, being wise about, our words, and how we interact with the devil, or how we interact with the world and the problems and the troubles that we encounter every day. So that is just my perspective. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you so much, Jermaine. I truly appreciate that. And Gogo, I would love for you to, just reflect on everything you just heard from everyone that just spoke, and then we will wrap up our session today. Thank you again, Gogo, for your patience and being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you for all the incredible perspectives, which I completely agree with. And as usual, the proverb has grown bigger than its seed. And I'd just like to follow from Stella, just in terms of the analogy of the labor ward. And since this is a Nigerian proverb, in the Yoruba understanding of conception and birth, it is maintained that the fetus is the good side of conception, but the fetus grows alongside the placenta, which is seen to be the evil aspect of conception. And then the labor period, but then of course the fetus cannot survive without the placenta, and the placenta cannot be without the fetus. And then in the labor period, this is a period of great strain and contraction, and often felt as pain, which represents what we may consider to be an evil. But then through that comes birth. So from that which you consider to be evil comes birth, through that delivery period, And so when the baby is eventually born, good has prevailed. And so the evil is in what is good, and the good is in what is evil. And they're tending to move with each other as long as they are in mutual duality and not pulling to one extreme or the other. And, finally, I'll just say, what we understand as evil or the devil within is our inability to cultivate ourselves, towards our innate divinity, towards that which is able to discern, and towards that which is able to be circumspect about all the facets of life around us. And when we do this, then we find that we have what we call the sheep, who have to be governed, or who tend to be governed, but the few who have the power. And as has been said earlier, abortion laws are not going to stop abortion. It's going to perhaps increase criminalization, in terms of what is who's doing it now illegally and who's not. And therefore is the whole system as a whole, if we look at the whole system, because there's so many facets that are then going to come about, there's so many consequences of a single law, is that for the good of the whole? And that is what our African, philosophy or spirituality or cosmology looks at. What is it that is for the good of the whole? And I think this proverb is really about that at the end of the day. And ultimately, what is it that we digest, and how do we digest it? As you were saying earlier, you're needing to digest what had just been said, because we do not end by just eating. We also need to digest. And once it's digested, what is it that we let go of on the other side? And that whole process is really important in this proverb as well. It is not just looking at what's coming in, but also what's going out. And is what's going out manure that is able to regenerate life? Or is what is coming out that which adds to the festering, that adds to the dis-ease, that adds to the putrefaction, and that adds to the apocalyptic, potential that we see the world in today? So I think this is a proverb that is really warning us as humanity as a whole. There's us, there's an individual devil within, but there's also a collective devil that we may all be a part of.
Thank you so much, Gogo. As we were all sharing today, and this is in closing, I know I have to let you go, Gogo, and I truly appreciate you. And also, as you're just wrapping up our session today, I got reminded about the Kenyan elections that are happening on August 9th, and there are two main contenders. I have my side that I support, and then there is the other side that I don't support that candidate, but I appreciate everybody's dreams. Then there's a third guy that just came about, and his platform is that he's advocating for the legalization of marijuana, which is a taboo topic in Kenya, but he has brought it to people's faces. And I was like, this is, legalization of marijuana is a devil that I can play with, because here in Seattle, it's legal, And then recently he added that he wants to introduce snake farming in Kenya, and I was like, oh, that one is a devil that I'm not very familiar with and I can't play with, because snakes scare the hell out of me. So I was like, wow, if we just have large scale snake farming in Kenya, it would be a country that probably I don't want to visit, because I can't imagine us exporting snakes from Kenya, and also maybe having family members growing snakes. Currently, snakes, are like the devil I can't play with. But I feel that everybody can be trained to do something that you never believed you could do. So that snake charmer is probably in all of us, and so we can all play with snakes, even though they're very scary and sometimes poison us. And that's something I was thinking about as we were talking today. And I truly want to thank you, Gogo. I want to thank every person that contributed to our session today. I know many of you who are watching on YouTube have not subscribed to the channel. Subscribing and sharing with other people to subscribe helps us grow this community, and eventually, we will be able to sustain it, So that's really important for you to do as we are wrapping up. And then, if you missed any part of this conversation, it's being recorded for the African Father in America podcast, which is available, on Amazon Music, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, everywhere where you can find a podcast. So make sure you listen, but especially on Apple Podcasts, make sure you subscribe to the African Father in America podcast over there. One more time, thank you again. And Gogo, thank you for making it here, even though there is, power outages in South Africa at the moment. I wish you a beautiful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Okay, bye.
African Father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African Father, tujikaze, jikaze. America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okelo, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.